All right, welcome everybody to Wacom Education Series webinar with Stacey, Roshan. We're going to get started here in a few minutes, and we'll let the room fill up for a couple of seconds, and then we'll get started. So welcome everybody. Hope you're having a great Wednesday. All right, well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Doug Little, and this is a series dedicated to education. Our guest today is Stacey Roshan. During the pandemic, teachers have had a lot of questions about incorporating technology into their remote learning and classroom and things like that. So we're happy to have Stacey here to take us through some of the things she knows about technology and all the great things she's been doing with Wacom tablets and computers and everything like that. She's been flipping her classroom for about 10 years, so she's super knowledgeable about the subject, and we're excited to have her with us. Stacey has been a director of innovation and educational technology at the Bullis School in Potomac, Maryland. She's also a teacher of AP Calculus, and she's the author of Tech with Heart, and we're super excited to have her here. So Stacey, take it away and let us know all your knowledge and expertise, and I'm sure everybody's glad to see you.
Thank you so much for the warm introduction, Doug, and thank you for joining us this evening or whatever time it is where you're joining in from. So I have some contact information that is on the screen right now. I do welcome, if you have additional questions that you aren't able to get answered tonight, for you to reach out to me. If you are on Twitter, my Twitter handle is @BuddyXO, and that is the easiest way to communicate for me. But also I have a blog, techiemusings.com, and you'll find my email address on there, and you can contact me so we can continue the conversation. My goal tonight is to talk about some of the different tablet options that are available to help inform your choice, because I've been hearing from a lot of teachers that that's just a challenging part. What tablet should I get when there's so many options out there? And then diving into some of the very simple tools to get started with. How do you start writing? What do you start writing on? So those are the primary goals for us tonight, and we will have some time at the end for some question and answer. So let's dive right in to 3 different types of tablets that you might look into. So I'm going to start with the pen tablet. And so the pen tablets, the ones that I have to show you are the Wacom Intuos. That's this one right here. And then the one by Wacom, which is the newest tablet. And that's the one, it is red on the back. So that's how we can identify that one. So these are the slate style. So they're like a giant mouse pad that you write on with a pen, but you do have to look up at the screen to see where you're writing. So that's how these work. So basically the Intuos tablet, what I love it for is in the classroom, this is the one that is wireless. So this one's Bluetooth enabled. There are 2 Wacom Intuos types you might look at. This is a small size, by the way. They have a small size and they have a larger size also. I use the small size just for the portability. And again, this one is Bluetooth enabled. You have to look that up when you're purchasing. You would want to make sure you get the Bluetooth one if you want to be able to use it around the classroom. And so wherever you're writing, like if you're writing in the top left, that would correspond to writing on the top left of your screen. Writing at the bottom right, that would be the bottom right of your screen. So anywhere you're writing, as you're writing along, corresponds with where it is on the screen. So this is kind of like your full screen, and you have the ability to write. And again, this one is Bluetooth enabled. The battery lasts super long on it with one charge, so you can easily walk around the classroom and use this one. And that's what I like to use it for. And then the newest one that I said, and so these pretty much have the same screen size, by the way, just so you have that awareness. And these are the small sizes that I'm showing right now. So this is the one by Wacom. Again, this one has the red back. And so this is their newest tablet that is Chromebook compatible. So whereas you've seen me get on before and say, no, there's not a Chromebook compatible device. Now there is. This one is Chromebook compatible. Now this one, I don't have the wire plugged in right now just so I could more easily hold it up. But this one, you do plug it in. So you would plug it in to your laptop. So just one plug. And it works the same as the Intuos one in that, you know, you're writing on this blank slate. But this one is not Bluetooth enabled. This is a great option if you're getting a class set of tablets. So I have a class set of tablets. I'm very lucky to have that. And if I was making the purchasing decision for a class set, I would purchase this one. It is the lowest price point available, and also it's compatible with PC, Mac, and Chromebook. So that's why I would suggest this one as the easiest. And again, it comes with a pen also. Nice little pen in the holder right here. So those are those two options. Now, one more thing that I'll say is that with the one by Wacom, this one doesn't have any buttons. If you've used a Wacom device before, you can program the buttons, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. The one by Wacom does not have any buttons here, but it does have two buttons that you can program on the pen itself. I love programming the buttons on the pen itself. Again, I'll talk about that in just a moment. I just want to bring up that difference between that and the Intuos one, because the Intuos has the buttons here. So it has 4 programmable buttons on top of it, as well as it has the pen that has 2 more programmable buttons. So if you're looking for programmable buttons, the Intuos does have more options available. So those are the 2 pen tablet options that I'm going to talk about. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about is the pen display, and that is the Wacom one. So as you can tell, this one is another display. So I can actually see, I have it mirrored here. And this is a really nice option. This is what I use for making my flipped classroom videos. So you do need to have it plugged in. As you can see, I have it plugged in right now. There's actually 3 wires. So this one, or 1 wire coming out of this, but it goes in, 1 into the wall as a plug, because again, I need to power this thing on. And then I have an HDMI and a USB port going into my computer. So that's one thing, is like, this one's not as portable. If you want to walk around the classroom, I can't walk around the classroom with this. However, this is absolutely, the Wacom one is absolutely what I use for making all of my flipped classroom videos. It's what I use for grading student work. When I'm sitting at my desk, I have it plugged in. It's so nice to have. I love writing on this thing. It is a nice big size. As you can tell, it's much larger than the small ones that I had shown you. Let me just hold them all up for comparison here. So it's much larger here. It's a 13-inch screen, and it's just a dream to write on. So again, the 2 that I kind of really love are the Intuos, if you want a wireless option to be able to walk around the classroom, if that's your priority. And the Wacom one, again, if you're making flipped classroom videos, this to me is the one to get. You invest in this technology and they last for so long, from my experience. The Wacom Intuos tablets, honestly, I got a class set in 2013, and I'm still using that same class set. Those are the class set that I share with my students. They pass them around the room, they pass them back, and they're still going strong. And, you know, the Wacom one is a newer tablet that I have, but I see it lasting a really long time because, again, it is just, you know, a second display. So I see myself using that for a really long time. The reason I love using it for my flipped classroom videos is I can use all the same programs that I'm using on my desktop all the time on my laptop. And all I'm doing is plugging in, getting another display. It's almost like getting another monitor, and I can be writing on my screen. So that's what I like. By the way, these pens that come with all of these Wacom devices, they are battery free, so you don't need to charge the pen ever. So that's something else to note. So that's an overview of the pen tablet versus the pen display. And the next thing I wanted to get into is kind of like this unboxing and setup. So you would want to download the drivers. Of course, if you're on a Chromebook, you do not need to download the driver for the one by Wacom. However, if you can download the driver, then you'll get some more settings. So absolutely, no matter what device you have, I would suggest if you're on a PC or a Mac that you download the drivers as your first step. And they have them for both the Mac and the PC. After that, you can go into the settings, and that's where when you go into your, your system preferences on the Mac, if I open up my system preferences and I get a screen like this, and that's where I can customize the pen, what it does, what each of those buttons do. And so this is just what the options are on the one by Wacom, because the only things that I can program on that are the two buttons on the pen that I had showed you. And so what I like to do when I only have the two buttons to program is one of them can be like a right click. I will tell you the one that I use always, if I can only program one button, I use pan and scroll. That's personally just what I use because I like to be able to just move around my page. I like to be able to move up and down easily. That's the most important button for me. So that's personally what I set it to. So again, if you open up your system preferences, then you can choose what you want it to do. Under navigation, you would have a pan scroll option there. You could choose right click. You could have it do a certain keyboard stroke. For instance, if you wanted to make your button choose to do undo, for example, you can choose that. Actually, you can choose by application if you want to program that button to do different things. That's an option you can choose too. You can choose like if you want it to be for all applications, or you could have pressed the plus button and chosen that you want it, just when you're in Notability, for example, you want the button to do a right click or a pan and scroll. And if you're in another application, you want the button to function in a different way. That's a really nice option that you have that not everybody is aware of, that you can program it by application. So those are the things you can do. You can customize the feel, the tip feel, all of that also. But I really just wanted to emphasize that you can program these buttons, and that's what I like the pan and scroll personally. All right. So after that little overview, I want to dig into some of the applications that I recommend for getting up and running. And the first of these is actually as simple as PowerPoint Online. I like creating my flipped classroom lesson, kind of the layout in here, but leave a ton of white space. And then what I can do, I could do this in my classroom, or I could create a screen recording. So I'm going to go over to PowerPoint right now. So here it is. So I just kind of have the lesson laid out. And this is something that I would also actually print out and hand out to students so that they can take notes. So as you can see, I have a bunch of blank white space. And then all you do, and this is the online version, by the way, you have more functionality if you're on the desktop version, but all I really want to be able to do is draw with a pen. And so I can do that here. So you just choose your pen tool right here. And then I can write right on the screen. So I'll show you. I'm going to be writing on both things. So you can see that as soon as I'm writing, you can see it come up on the screen because I'm mirroring my screen here. So you could be giving a lesson in class, you could be creating a screencast, and it's so simple because again, I get that double screen here. So I can be looking at that. I really love this as an option. And it saves all my digital inking right in the PowerPoint. So that's a really great option too. If you want to make a video, all you have to do is use a screencasting tool. So maybe Screencastify or Loom or whatever you may be using. In this particular webinar, we're not going to get too much into the screencasting tools. I just wanted to show how simple an option PowerPoint is. You can have some of the different pens. You can program different colors that you want here. have a couple different colors. You can also change the pen thickness, so you can make it a little bit thicker, just like that. You can make it a little bit thinner. You can also use a highlighter if you want to highlight as you're talking. And that's basically it. That's how I would use it. And then when I want to erase, honestly, I just usually choose the eraser tool and I erase that way. So again, if you wanted to program your button to do some of the eraser things, you could. I find it doesn't work with all the applications, so I've abandoned using the eraser as one of my click buttons, and I've preferred the pan and scroll and undo as my two favorite button options. So that's how it works in PowerPoint. Again, it saves all this digital inking. So that's really nice too, because I can print out the original. What I normally do is I'll take the original, then I'll make another copy. So I'll like save 7.4, save this, and then I'll do a save as to make another copy, and I'll call it 7.4 inked. And then I have the original that I can print out for students to take notes. And then I have the 7.4 inked version where I would have all of my handwritten notes completed, and then I could print out a copy of the notes, for instance, if somebody missed class and I wanted to hand that out. All right, let's move into the next application, which is Jamboard. I know a lot of people, if you're a Google school, you may be using Jamboard a lot right now, and this is super simple, a super, super simple whiteboarding app. But you can pull in, I'm going to bring you over to the Jamboard that I set up for this. You can pull in some images. So like I found these little flashcards and I just pulled these in as an image. So that was it. I took an image, took a screenshot, pulled them in, and then you can use the pen tools here to obviously to write on the screen. You can draw it out so you can help your learners, you know, kind of talk it out. And then you can change colors here, and you can easily write. So this is one of the easiest applications that I really enjoy using. Not many options here. It is collaborative, so your students could get on here also. That's what I like about Jamboard, is that I can share it and I can give multiple people permission, so it's not just me. I can have my students logging into this. I can give them view only permission if I want them to just watch, or I can give them editing permission so that we can be writing at the same time, or that students can write together. And you can have multiple frames here set up. So in this one, you can see I kind of set it up as an example. Please follow my example and finish solving the other problems. And I would have made one for each student in this case. That was the example that I was trying to show here, that each student would be able to fill out their own. I would put their name on it, and you can just duplicate the slides for as many students in the class as you have, so that each student can have their own frame and they could be able to whiteboard. So Jamboard, one of the simplest to get started with. And then the next level up would be Cami. And a lot of these features are free. I'm going to try and differentiate. Obviously, the PowerPoint was free, the Jamboard was free, but Cami has a paid version and a free version. So I do have a upgraded version, but the drawing tool is absolutely free here. So how I might do this is, in this example, I have some screenshots pulled into here, and then I can mark it up with my pen. So I can just go ahead and get my drawing tool, pull it out, and I could mark up whatever the student did wrong or whatever they did correctly. We can talk through it all together as a class. So again, I can easily write on the slide anywhere that I want. And again, I'm just writing again on this one. You could write on any of them and it would work the same. For this app, you can change the stroke thickness also. So sometimes people don't know where that is. That's right here. So I can change how thick my pen is when I'm writing. And for this, I can have like 3. That's what I normally do. I'll like set up my colors that I want ahead of time, so it's easy and I don't have to pick from them as class goes. And I can just kind of toggle through, but there's a lot more colors on this one that you can choose from. So that is something to know too. In Cami, there's a lot of color options. So you can start with a you know, like some slides here you had set up in advance. I wrote the problem out and then I just drew it. You could do that, or you can just create blank pages right in Cami. So actually when I press the plus sign, I can choose if I want a blank page, I can do a line page, I can even do a grid type style of page. And this could just be my whiteboarding application of choice. If you're using Cami already in your classroom, this is a great whiteboarding application of choice for you to use. So here now I have the grid page that I have here. If the orientation, if you want it to be, you know, more like a whiteboard style, you can change the orientation by clicking on the menu over here, and then you can rotate your page before you get going, and you could start writing in this. One more thing that I want to bring up, because I had kind of talked about screencasting just a little bit. Something else that you can do is you can create a simple little video right within Cami if you have the paid version. So with the paid version, I have these commenting tools. So I have text comment, but I also can do voice comment with the paid version, and I can do a video comment. But what I want to show you right now is the screen capture option. So if I choose that one and I click anywhere on the page, and then I choose what I want to do a screencast of. So let me just do my entire screen for this one. Now let me pull up my drawing tool. So as I'm writing and I'm talking and I would be solving out the problem, let me just go ahead and do now. And that's a video. Oops, I don't know. My handwriting got messed up. Now let me pull up my drawing tool. You can make it full screen. So as I'm writing and I'm talking. So what I love this for is if you were, let me fix this because now this is bothering me. So what I like this for is, say that you have like a problem set and you're creating an answer key, you could make a little screencast for each of the problems individually. Instead of making one big screencast, you could just say like, you know, this is the answer to this problem. And what this activity would allow you to do is create a really rich asynchronous learning activity for your students in class, so that they could kind of self-help, or they could work in teams, and they could still get your help from the little video that you made, but it would be just whichever problem they got stuck on. So they wouldn't have to watch the whole video, just one video through and find wherever the problem was that they got stuck on. But you can make little mini videos for each problem. So you could have like video 1 right here. You could ask another question right here. And then you could make another screencast, just hit the button, you would comment and make another video at this point. So Cami is a tool that kind of has a lot of things all in one. If you're already using Cami, it is great to use with any of these devices. And again, if you have the paid version, you have that screen capture ability. And then the final thing I did just want to touch on is Zoom, because Zoom has annotation already in it. And so I'm just going to play this video as I'm talking, and I'll talk you through it, because there is a whiteboarding tool right in Zoom. So you can choose that you just want the whiteboard. You have the text option, you can type. You also have the drawing option, and that's where you can change the thickness of the pen, as you can see I was doing, and the color. And then you can write there. So I was changing the opacity. This is going to be just a pen. And you can write you can use the arrows. Again, I'm changing the color here. Gonna go back to my pen, change my color again. And so again, this is now I'm changing the thickness of my pen. I made it a little bit thicker here. But if you're already using Zoom, I would just recommend using a whiteboard right within here. You can also annotate anywhere on the screen in Zoom. This is just the whiteboarding feature that's available. And then the last thing in here is that you can save and download after you finish your lesson. the last thing that you would be able to do, let me go forward a little bit. Oh, in this example, I'm just showing that you can also annotate anywhere on the screen. So the annotation tool is available anywhere on your screen in Zoom. So you can mark up any web page, for example. Again, if you press the save button right here, you can actually export any of the notes that you've taken. All right. So now that I dug into the tools a little bit, I just want to close and wrap up by really talking a little bit about like the flipped classroom and what it's meant to me. When Doug introduced me, he said that I've been flipping my classroom for 10 years now. And it's been a really powerful way for me to shift the role over to the student and allow them to take ownership over some of this. So for example, even when I showed the Cami example, here, what creating an answer key like this would allow me to do is it would allow me to create a resource so that students can try and tackle the question on their own before they ask me a question. And when I open up space in my classroom by flipping my classroom and asking students to watch a video ahead of class so that in class they can really work on problems, then I really allow time for collaboration in my classroom so that students can work with one another. I put that ownership back on the student because they have all these resources available. They can answer their own question. It's less about them needing to ask me a ton of questions and more about them being able to use these resources to figure it out on their own. And I really have found that their learning is taken to the next level. In addition, I'm able to really sit more one-on-one with students. And this is probably my favorite part, is that it's deepened the relationships that I'm able to build because the students who do need me to sit with them or they need me to hear when they're talking about something incorrectly in class and they need that on-the-spot fix. I'm able to do that now because I'm there for them at the most important part when they're working through the problems together. And, I open up the space for them to be able to work in the classroom. If I provide resources like that Cami, where students can get some of their questions answered, it just frees me up even more to sit one-on-one with the students who need me, who maybe would not be as good with the video, because, we have all different learners in our classrooms. Some of them are going to thrive with the videos. Some of them need us to be sitting there with them. I'm able to provide all these different platforms. I'm able to provide all these different opportunities for my students to interact with material in the best way for them and for me to be there for them. So this is how I've created my flipped classroom videos. Again, this is me using the Wacom One. Personally, I'm on a Mac. As you can see here, I'm using Notability, but you can also just use PowerPoint. PowerPoint works just as well. Notability has kind of been my binder, and that's where I've kept everything. I will tell you, I use this for everything, not just for teaching my AP Calculus class. I also use it for my note-taking. Everything is digital. The reason that I like using Notability, I'm just going to touch on it quickly here in case you're already using it. The reason is because everything's stored in here. So all my notes are in here. All my PowerPoints are in here. And I can search my notes. So I can say like, I want to find anything that says the word logarithm. And Notability will find anywhere that I've handwritten logarithm because it has OCR recognition built in, and anywhere that I've typed logarithm. And so it is just it's like having this one huge notebook that's searchable. So I love that. And I also use it for all my meeting notes. I use it for my lesson planning. I just keep everything all in the one space, and I keep different sections in Notability to organize. So I have AP Calculus, I have my lesson planning notes, and I have just like meeting notes and so forth also. So that's how I do things. You can mirror, as you can see, I can have the mirrored screen. I could also use my Wacom One as a second display. That's something that can be very helpful in our remote learning setting. If you are remote, it it serves as a second monitor pretty much. So that would be a display setting on your computer, whether you want it to mirror, so it's the same, or if you want to have it as an extended display so that you have different views on each of the screens. So when I say that, it would be like you could have your Google Meet here or your Zoom here and see all your students. And then on your other screen, you could have your notes up so that you're able to write and do a screen share of just this screen. So that's how, I would recommend that being used.
Okay, Stacey, great.
Yeah.
Thanks. We have some questions if you want to answer some.
Definitely. Let's go into some questions.
Okay, we promised we'd answer questions at the end, so that's where we are. So let's see. So somebody asked if you can write on Google Slides. I know you're a Google school, so what about that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And to write on my Google Slides, what I actually do is I use Pear Deck to do that. And we're going to have an upcoming webinar that's focused just on using Pear Deck. That's how I write on my Google Slides personally. So if you're using Pear Deck, maybe you know how to use that already, or maybe you could come back to that webinar that's specific on that. If you're not using Pear Deck, then another thing that you can do is you can use some Chrome extensions, like Web Paint is one such Chrome extension that you can get. And then that Web Paint allows you to annotate on anywhere on your screen. So there's a couple of different ones. Web Paint is a Chrome extension that I've used before. So you might take a look at the Chrome store. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, here's another cool question. Do you use the Intuos Pen on the Zoom whiteboard, and how do you navigate successfully between two monitors?
Okay, so yes, you can. So you can definitely use. So when you think of this, okay, so this is back to the Intuos. When we think of the Intuos, this is just, there's no display on this one. And just think about this as like how you would use your mouse pad at the current moment. So you all have probably tried using your mouse pad with the whiteboard in Zoom before. And however that works is very similar to how this works. So I just use the pen. And now when I'm using this pen, all it does is, like, when I'm writing maybe in the center of the screen, that's going to be writing in the center of my whiteboard on the Zoom screen. So wherever I'm writing on here corresponds, it maps directly to your monitor. So I know some people have said to me that they like a little bit of a bigger, like they don't like the small one as much because they like this to represent a little bit more realistically the space on their actual laptop. Because this is much smaller. So, I would have a smaller space to get from here to here than you might be seeing on your laptop screen. But honestly, I like using the small one. I'm also kind of small. And so moving this around has been very easy for me. And I get used to it. Like, you get used to, like, when you're in the top left corner, you're writing on the top left of the Zoom screen. I hope that makes sense. It really works like a giant mouse pad. And wherever you're writing is where it comes up on that screen. Now, when I'm using the display style one, then it's more intuitive. I see exactly where I'm writing. And in this instance, you know what? I usually had it in mirror mode all the time, where the same thing on my screen, on my Wacom screen, was the same thing on my screen of my laptop. But in remote learning, I think we all have explored different things where we're like, oh, I want to just be able to see my students on my laptop, and I want to just be able to write on another screen. And that's when I would recommend splitting up the two screens and have a different display. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, I think that answered it. Another cool thing about the Intuos tablet is it being Bluetooth. You can literally wander around the room as you're teaching, and if you have a projector in your class, you can project what you're writing to your students. So that's also super cool.
Yes, so true.
And I think you do that often, don't you?
Yes, because I am also, like, Again, I'm short, I'm small. So sometimes I feel like I get lost if I am like behind a podium or if I'm, sitting down at a desk. Though I do that sometimes, so it depends. I won't say that I never do that because sometimes I do. However, most of the time I like to be walking around the classroom. I like to be kind of sitting with students individually. Another thing that you can use when you're walking around with this device is so a lot of times what I do is I will kind of walk around my classroom, but keep my projector on. So if I'm sitting with a student and they're asking a specific question, I can just be writing and that's still projected on my screen so that even though I'm working just one-on-one with a student, maybe somebody on the other side of the classroom had that same question and they could look up at the screen and see me writing and know that, oh, the solution to that answer is going on right now, or maybe they would come and join me so that we can talk out this question together. Obviously, these are all strategies that I'm talking about in a face-to-face classroom, but that is a really nice way to have it too. So what I'm saying is, for example, just have a Jamboard, just have a blank Jamboard space. So let's just say it's totally blank and I'm sitting with a student and I just am walking around the room and they ask me a question and I sit down with them and I start answering that question and I start writing it out. But this is, even though I'm just working with them in this moment in time, everybody in the room can see this on the big projector in the front of the classroom. And so they could, then come and sit with me. So instead of like me writing on a piece of paper and it just being between me and that student, this can now be projected for the full class. So they could learn from anything that I'm writing in that moment too. Or again, no, hey, I have that same question. Why don't I join that table? And they can move around.
Here's a question that you might not know the answer to, but you may because you've been fiddling around a little bit in the Khan Academy. But somebody had a question about writing on the Zoom whiteboard is very fluid, they find, but when writing something during the Khan Academy features, it's not as smooth. Do you find that true? And is there something to get around that?
That's a good question. And you're right in that sometimes depending on which application you're in, it will affect the smoothness of your writing. So I don't really know. I have only used Khan Academy. Like the little whiteboard in there is really nice, the sketchpad, but I haven't written a ton of stuff out in there. So I don't really know why it's not as smooth. Maybe when we're getting to the next question, I can pull up my Khan Academy and we can try writing in that and see. But I don't have an answer just off the top of my head on how to make it a smoother experience because it might just be not quite as smooth.
Sure, and I think somebody wants to learn a little bit more about your class setup with Intuos tablets. Does every student have a tablet in the class, or do they have to share?
Yeah, so I have a class set where every student has one, but they don't take it home. So we just use it in class. So everybody would get one at the beginning of class and they use it. So that's where I use Pear Deck. So I make a bunch of drawing type slides as my warm up. And then students answer the questions with their Intuos tablet. And I can see all that handwriting coming in real time as they're writing. So it's been really great for me in that way.
Cool. And then Alfredo has a nice question that we may be able to help him with later on during our education series, but he's asking if you and us can come up with a presentation that would set up your classroom for a live stream hybrid situation. So I think he's looking for some examples on how you actually do it. So that might be kind of fun.
Yeah. So honestly, when I'm doing like not in the classroom, but like just remote, this is like I'm doing a screen share. Normally I'm in Pear Deck most of the time. So that's how I run my classroom. I haven't touched on Pear Deck today because it's not the theme of our talk, but we are going to do a Pear Deck one next Wednesday at the same time. And it's just going to be devoted to getting up and running with Pear Deck. And I will be showing kind of some of the questions and how I manage that with my students if you're interested in more on that. But I just do a screen share normally, and the interaction all comes because my students are in the Pear Deck. So the Pear Deck is a way that the students ask questions. The Pear Deck is how I see students working in real time. The Pear Deck is really my way of shining the spotlight back on the students' work, even though, you know, like I'm doing a screen share, but I'm seeing all their work in real time. So I wanted to keep this one really simple. So another easy way to do this would be to kind of set it up through a Jamboard where each student has their own slide. Now this would be a little bit different in that I would kind of have one question. Instead of one question at a time on the Pear Deck, I would have a slide per student. So maybe I would have all of the 4 questions on one slide. But when we get into the conversation piece, now I can, you know, pull up actual student work on the board. I can annotate on top of it, which is nice in the Jamboard. But now this makes for a really rich discussion for us to have together, all right here. So I don't have a super fancy setup, to be honest, in my classroom, though, again, we could talk more about various setups. Usually I just do a screen share. And in my classroom, how I do it is I just have, you know, instead of a screen share, which I'm doing in Zoom or Google Meet right now, I'm just casting to my projector. At my school, we have a wireless projector. So all I do is I press a button and whatever is on my screen is on my projector in my classroom. And that's all I do.
I think that answers it pretty well. Thanks. And then we have another question. Can I drag documents or screenshots directly into Cami without having to merge documents?
Okay, I just went back to the, sorry, I went off of that question because I went back on this Khan Academy and I don't know, I'm drawing on this and I'm having a smooth experience, but
yeah, it's interesting. It might be the person's pen. It might be that they don't have a Wacom product and their pen just isn't as nice. That could be possible.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a difference in what tablet you have on how nicely it writes. So you're not gonna get the same smoothness when you don't have a Wacom tablet, in my experience. So it's super smooth, and this looks pretty good to me right now. Like some, you know, like I always like doing a 0 because sometimes it is jaggedy, but this is working pretty nicely for me. And I'm using right now I'm doing it with the Wacom 1, just so you know. That's what I'm using right now. So that's the one I have plugged in. I didn't want all 3 of them plugged in. Okay, let's get back. What was the question that you had asked me when I ignored you? I'm sorry.
We were asking, somebody asked if they can drag documents or screenshots directly into a document using Cami.
Oh, okay. That's a good question. So, okay, so you can import different files. Let me just go backwards a step. One of the easiest things to do, honestly, is take a screenshot. So if you have a bunch of different things and you just like you have this slide, for example, and I just want to pull this in, the quickest and easiest way is I would take a screenshot of this right now. And then when I go back into Cami, I would just go into my add media, and then I would pull in that screenshot. And then you can position that on your page. Probably should have started a new blank page, but you know, and then right on top of it. The only thing with this is this can still move around. I wish you could lock this into place. You can't, but you can totally then mark up on top of it. No problem. Okay, so that's quick and easy. But you can also, when I sign in, I think you might have said that this person was referencing pulling in multiple documents already, but you can open from Google Drive or you can open it from your computer. So if I had this and say I downloaded this to my desktop, let's go ahead and download it. So let's just download it as a PDF. Then I can open this. And it's going to pull in nicely. And then say that so now I can ink this up just like that. And if I wanted to merge this, or if I had pages that I didn't want it with, you can go over here and you can use split and merge document. And so now if I had too many pages, for example, I could delete certain things. I can also add in other files. So I could merge two different documents together. If I had another PDF, for example, I could pull it in. So yeah, that's how I recommend doing this. So you can see here when I go to split and merge, if I wanted, I could have pulled in the other page, but if I want to get rid of like the last two pages, for example, I can easily do that. Just delete those slides and then you can export them all. Perfect. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, I think that answered the question pretty well. What about teachers that are trying to bring technology into the classroom? How do you think they should go about talking with administrators, other teachers? What are some of the secrets you've learned over the years?
All right, so I'm gonna that's gonna take me to this ending here. So like, first of all, really understanding what the flipped classroom is to you. So to me, these are like some of my primary goals. When I say like I flip my class, it doesn't mean you're going to flip your class in the same way, right? So like, what are your primary goals, and making sure that you're expressing that to your admin, to your students, and to parents. So I actually have a video, a welcome to my flipped classroom. Actually, if you're interested in checking it out, if you go to my YouTube channel, it is the first video you'll see when you go onto my YouTube channel as the intro video there. So that's what I share with parents right around back to school night, for anybody who can't come to back to school night, and also just as an added resource for parents. This is what my flipped classroom is. This is why I do it. This is really about providing more resources for my students, and that the really important learning happens in the classroom when I am there with them, making sure that they understand that. And before I started flipping my classroom, I explained it to my administration. I had full support from them for doing this, and explaining why. Over the years, I've gotten so much feedback from students. Here were some of the feedback that I've gotten from them on like how the flipped classroom has helped them. So I think looking at what other teachers have experienced and sharing those things, but also working them into your classroom. So, you know, for me, it's been a really big part has been about allowing students to work together. It was really interesting to me in one of my first years, I got this comment. I got so used to working on math problems at home, and it was nice to have the support of classmates. So just that collaborative piece that we're able to bring in. I'm able to work at my own pace. It lowers the anxiety due to my extreme organization. But that is another key piece here. So like, I always had videos at least a week out in advance so students could watch the video when it was best for them. Maybe they had a sport event and they needed to watch 2 videos in one night because they knew the next night they just didn't want to have homework. And I gave them that ownership over doing the work at a time that best fit their needs. And that has been a big, big part of why it's been so successful, I think, is that students had those resources at a time that best fit their needs. The freedom and the independence, the support and the guidance. Also for students who might be out, who have been sick. Like, I've gotten this one so many times over. This student suffered a concussion, and out of all their classes, AP Calculus was the easiest to catch up on. That's saying a lot, right? So just giving, again, students that opportunity to look back at prior work, whether it was because they missed class or because they just needed more time to process and think about it. And then the last thing that I would just say is just like the reach and the impact to me has been such a major benefit of all of this. Just my YouTube videos, putting them out. I put all of this public on the, on YouTube for anybody. And the number of students who have watched these videos, the comments that I've gotten from students, and since this is AP Calculus, I get it from high school students and from college students who are looking for these resources. Like they are looking to help themselves and they don't know where else to turn. They're stuck and we're able to help them. We can have such a huge reach and impact. And that has been one of the very best things of flipping my classroom. I mean, beyond just the walls of my classroom, which has been cool, is being able to reach this audience. And as a math teacher, it's a real global audience because, they look at the math and they understand it in the same way. So it's been absolutely awesome. So consider that too. There's a lot of upfront costs. Making these videos take a lot of time and effort. I'm not going to downplay that in any way. I spend hours making each video. I also edit my videos. I'm not saying you should make them just like I do, but it has paid off like so many times over. These are also reusable. So one of my hopes is that, I'm going to put my contact information here again so that you can reach out to me if you're trying to do any of this. One of my hopes is that, we've had an opportunity right now to play with so many tools. It's not been for great reasons for a lot of us. Like we've onboarded too many tools and it's been like out of this huge need. But what I hope is that you will have found some tools and you've already learned those tools. And now you can have maybe, you can step back in planning for the fall when we will hopefully go back to a lot of face-to-face learning and think about some of the things that worked well asynchronously and some of the things that worked well because you were online, and use some of those ideas to plant into your lesson design for the year ahead. And so in that way, I think you've already been equipped with super great reminders of what is going to make great flipped classroom videos, what's going to make great online content for your students because you've had to do that. And when you have more time to actually think about the lesson design and you're not in this panic mode and we're not in this emergency crisis anymore, I think we'll have a real opportunity to think through how to construct lessons and how to make them most accessible for all students in our classroom. And so that to me is the really exciting next step that we're going to get into. And I'm really happy that we had so many questions tonight and that we had the time for these questions. And I would like to be able to continue those conversations. And so I do welcome you to reach out to me with any questions that you have. And, maybe we can do some more of these follow-up webinars. Already today, there's been a lot of questions about, kind of workflows that I use Pear Deck for, and we already have that webinar planned for next week, actually. But, if there's more questions that pop up, perhaps we can schedule another webinar and present that to you to get those needs met.
Well, thanks, Stacey. This has been super cool. Thanks for joining us tonight on our first Wacom Education series. As Stacey mentioned, next week we're going to be diving into Pear Deck and how she uses it in the classroom. So that's going to be a blast. Same time as tonight. So 4 p.m. West Coast time, 7 p.m. East Coast time. Thanks, Stacey, for doing this. And if you want some webinar ideas, feel free to email me at douglas.little@wacom.com, and we'll throw some ideas at Stacey to see if she thinks they're a good idea, and we'll get them up online. So thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks again, Stacey, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.